The wind off Lake Michigan in February has a way of cutting right through the glass, or at least, it feels that way. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of my penthouse on the 45th floor, looking down at the frozen grid of Chicago. From up here, the cars were just little sparks of light moving through arteries of gray slush. It was quiet. That specific, expensive kind of quiet you only get when you are high above the noise of the rest of the world. My phone was resting on the marble island in the kitchen, on speaker. Felix, my executive assistant, was on the other end. His voice was crisp, lacking any static. "The acquisition of the Baltic Fleet is finalized, Morgan," Felix said. "Legal just sent over the final dockets. The purchase price is holding steady at $420 million. We need your digital signature by 5 o'clock today if we want to announce the merger on Monday morning." I took a sip of lukewarm water. "Good work, Felix. Make sure the severance packages for their existing ground crew are generous. I don't want bad press about Apex Horizon laying off blue-collar workers. We are automating, not eliminating. Retrain whoever is willing to learn the new interface." "Understood, boss." "Oh, and the quarterly report for the Asia-Pacific sector is in your inbox. Revenue is up 12%. "Excellent," I murmured. "That puts my personal equity evaluation somewhere in the north of." I didn't finish the sentence. The other line on my phone blinked. The caller ID flashed a single word, "Mother." My stomach tightened. It was a reflex I hadn't been able to train out of myself, despite managing a logistics empire that moved cargo across 3 oceans. I could negotiate with hardened union leaders in Detroit and fierce tech regulators in Brussels without blinking, but seeing Victoria Blackwood's name on my screen made me feel like a clumsy 10-year-old again. "Hold on, Felix. I have to take this," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "Good luck," Felix said. He knew. He was the only one who really knew. I tapped the screen. "Hello, Mother." Morgan, her voice came through, sharp and breathless, as if she was in a great hurry and I was an obstacle in her path. "I assume you haven't forgotten about tonight." I paused. I actually had forgotten. My mind had been occupied with the complexities of integrating artificial intelligence into deep-sea shipping routes. "Remind me." She sighed, a sound that managed to convey 30 years of disappointment in a single exhale. "Harrison's engagement dinner. Tonight. 7 o'clock at Le Jardin. Honestly, Morgan, sometimes I think you live in a cave. Do you even check the family group chat?" "I've been busy, Mother." "Busy," she scoffed. "Busy with what? That little computer game you play? Or are you delivering food on a bicycle now? I never can keep track of your little gigs." I looked around my living room. It was 3,000 square feet of minimalist Italian design. The painting on the far wall was an original Banksy. "Something like that," I said. "I'll be there." "Listen to me closely," she snapped. "This isn't just a dinner. Harrison is bringing Bianca. You know who she is, right? She is a senior partner at Titan Ventures. She is elite. Do not embarrass us, Morgan. Wear a suit. A real one, not something you found at a thrift store. And for heaven's sake, park that rust bucket of yours around the block. We are trying to make a good impression." "Is Dad coming?" "Of course your father is coming. He's closing a massive deal with Bianca's firm. This dinner is crucial for Oakmont Holdings. Just, try to be invisible, Morgan. That is what you're best at, isn't it?" The line went dead. She didn't say goodbye. She never did. I put the phone down and walked back to the window. The reflection in the glass showed a 29-year-old with tired eyes and a posture that was a little too rigid. To the world, I was Morgan Blackwood, the reclusive founder of Apex Horizon, the ghost CEO who disrupted the global supply chain industry. To them, I was just Morgan, the college dropout who liked computers too much and couldn't hold down a real job. I looked at the time. It was 4:30. I had 2 hours to transform from a billionaire tech mogul back into the family disappointment. It was a role I had played my entire life, but tonight, I had a feeling the script was about to change. I walked into my walk-in closet, bypassing the row of bespoke Tom Ford suits that I wore for board meetings. Instead, I reached for the back of the rack. I pulled out a gray off-the-rack jacket I had bought 5 years ago for a cousin's wedding. It was slightly frayed at the cuffs and smelled faintly of dust. It was perfect. As I changed, my mind drifted back. I remembered the day I left Oakmont Holdings. I was 22, fresh out of Stanford with a degree I hadn't finished because I was too busy coding the prototype for what would become Apex. I had brought the business plan to my father, Conrad. I sat in his mahogany office, sweating, and showed him how we could use machine learning to optimize his trucking routes. I told him it would save Oakmont $20 million in the first year alone. He didn't even read the report. He used it as a coaster for his Scotch glass. Logistics is a handshake business, Morgan, he had said, his face red and puffy. It's about golf, dinners, and knowing the right people. You can't replace gut instinct with an algorithm. You want to help? Go work in the warehouse. Learn to lift a box before you try to tell me how to ship one. I left that day. I took my video game code and built Apex Horizon in a basement apartment with 3 other rejects from the industry. 7 years later, Apex was valued at $4 billion. Oakmont Holdings, meanwhile, was bleeding out. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I needed to know exactly what I was walking into tonight. I logged into the Bloomberg terminal and pulled up the financial records for my father's company. It was worse than I thought. Oakmont Holdings wasn't just struggling, it was technically insolvent. The balance sheet was a disaster zone of high-interest loans and leveraged assets. They had missed their last 3 payroll taxes. The only thing keeping them afloat was a line of credit that was set to expire next Monday. Then I saw the search history on the Titan Ventures public inquiry log. My father had submitted 5 applications for funding in the last month. All rejected. So that's the game, I whispered to the empty room. Tonight wasn't an engagement dinner. It was a rescue mission. Harrison was marrying Bianca not just because she was beautiful or smart, but because she was the gatekeeper to the capital they desperately needed. They were going to use this dinner to corner her, to pressure her into signing a check to save the family business. And I was invited for one reason only, contrast. They needed a failure at the table. They needed someone to point at and say, look, we aren't like him. We are successful. We are reliable. I was the prop. The scapegoat. A notification popped up on my screen. It was an email from my chief financial officer regarding a distressed asset purchase. I had set up a dummy corporation a month ago to monitor Oakmont's debt, thinking I might anonymously bail them out if things got too bad. I clicked on the file. The debt was being auctioned off by the bank on Monday morning. If no one bought it, Oakmont would be liquidated. My father would lose the house, the cars, the club membership, everything that defined his existence. I could save them. I could stroke a check right now, pay off the $20 million they owed, and they would never even know it was me. It would be the noble thing to do. The good child thing to do. But then I remembered the voicemail from my birthday last week. Or rather, the lack of one. Harrison had sent a text that said, HBD. Mom says call her. I closed the laptop with a snap. No, I said aloud. Not this time. I wasn't going to save them blindly. I was going to go to that dinner. I was going to sit there and watch. If they showed even a shred of decency, a single ounce of genuine familial love, I would step in. I would reveal myself and catch them before they hit the ground. But if they treated me the way they usually did? If they used me as a punching bag to elevate themselves in front of Bianca? Then I would let gravity do its work. I grabbed my keys, not the keys to the McLaren P1, but the keys to the 2018 Honda Accord that I kept specifically for family visits. I checked my reflection one last time. The gray suit hung loosely on my frame. My hair was purposely unstyled. I looked tired. I looked defeated. I looked exactly like the person they wanted me to be. Showtime, I muttered, and walked out the door. I was merging onto the I-90 expressway when my phone buzzed again. This time, the dashboard display read, Harrison. I pressed the answer button on the steering wheel. Hello, Harrison. Morgan, his voice boomed through the car speakers. It was loud, confident, and dripping with that false charm he used on everyone. It was the voice of a man who had never been told no in his entire life. Where are you? You're not going to be late, are you? Bianca hates lateness. It shows a lack of discipline. I'm 10 minutes away, I said, keeping my eyes on the road. The snow was picking up, turning the highway into a slip-and-slide. Traffic is bad. Traffic is always bad for people who don't know the shortcuts, he chuckled. Listen, bro, I need to give you a heads up before you walk in there. A heads up? Yeah. Look, Bianca, she's high level. She deals with CEOs and founders all day. She's got a nose for weakness. So, when she asks you what you do, just keep it vague, okay? Vague, I repeated. Yeah. Don't go into details about your, whatever it is. That shipping app thing. Just say you're in logistics support or something. And for God's sake, don't mention that you're working freelance. It makes you sound unemployed. I am freelance, Harrison. I own my own time. Exactly, he laughed, a cruel, sharp sound. That's code for I can't get hired. Look, I did you a favor. I told Bianca that things have been a little rough for you lately. I told her I've been helping you out with rent. You know, just to explain why your clothes are the way they are. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. You told her you pay my rent? It makes me look generous, Morgan. It shows I care about family. And it takes the pressure off you to look successful. You should be thanking me. If she thinks you're a charity case, she won't ask you hard questions about your 5-year plan or your portfolio. You can just sit there, eat the steak, which I'm paying for, by the way, and nod. You're using me as a prop, I said, my voice steady. I'm managing the narrative, he corrected. We need this deal, Morgan. Oakmont needs Titan Ventures. If Bianca thinks the Blackwood family is strong, stable, and charitable, she'll sign. If she thinks we have a loose cannon who plays on computers all day, she might walk. Don't ruin this for me. Don't ruin this for Mom and Dad. I wouldn't dream of it, I said. I'll be the perfect charity case. Good man. Oh, and Morgan? Try not to order the most expensive thing on the menu. Just because I'm treating doesn't mean you should take advantage. See you there. The line clicked off. I drove in silence for the next few miles, the only sound being the rhythmic thwack-thwack of the windshield wipers. The anger in my chest was cold, solid. It wasn't the fiery rage of a teenager anymore. It was the calculated, icy resolve of a CEO who had just found a competitor committing fraud. Harrison had lied to his future wife about me to make himself look like a savior. He had painted me as a financial burden, a leech, just to polish his own halo. He had no idea that the rent money he claimed to give me wouldn't cover the fuel cost for my private jet for a single hour. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out an old, slightly cracked iPhone 8. I kept my real phone, the latest encrypted model, in my jacket pocket. If I was going to play the part, I needed the right props. I pulled up to the valet stand at Le Jardin. The line was a parade of Bentleys, Range Rovers, and S-Class Mercedes. When I rolled up in my Honda, the valet looked at me with open confusion. He hesitated before opening the door. Checking in for the Blackwood party, I said, handing him the keys. Right, the valet said, eyeing the scratches on the bumper. I'll keep it close, sir. Don't worry, I said, stepping out into the biting wind. It's not going anywhere. Le Jardin was the kind of restaurant that smelled of old money. It wasn't just the scent of truffles and aged cognac, it was the smell of leather, mahogany, and quiet desperation disguised as exclusivity. The lighting was dim, designed to flatter aging socialites and hide the prices on the menu. I brushed the snow off my shoulders and walked toward the host stand. Before I could even open my mouth, a heavy hand clapped onto my shoulder. Well, if it isn't the prodigal son. I turned to see Uncle Stuart. He wasn't really my uncle, just my father's business partner and longtime drinking buddy. He was a large man who wore suits that were too tight and laughed at his own jokes too loudly. "Hello, Stuart," I said. "Didn't think you'd show up," Stuart said, looking me up and down. His eyes lingered on my frayed cuffs. He smirked. "Your dad told me you were going through a minimalist phase. Is that what they call being broke these days?" "Something like that," I replied, keeping my face neutral. "Hey, no shame in it, kid," Stuart said, leaning in close. His breath smelled of scotch and peppermint. "Not everyone is cut out for the big leagues. Your brother, though. Harrison is a shark. He's going to eat this city alive. That fiancé of his? A total catch. Loaded and smart. You could learn a thing or two from him." "I'm sure I could," I said. "Just, try not to talk business tonight, alright?" Stuart patted my cheek, a gesture that was incredibly patronizing. "Leave the heavy lifting to the men. You just enjoy the free meal." He waddled off toward the bar, chuckling to himself. I took a deep breath. The test had begun. They were already setting the stage. I was the jester, and they were the kings. I walked into the private dining room. It was a glass-walled enclosure at the back of the restaurant, separated from the commoners by a velvet rope. My parents were already there, seated at the head of the long table. My father, Conrad, looked older than I remembered. His hair was thinner, and there were deep lines of stress etched around his mouth. But he was masking it well with a forced, boisterous laugh. My mother, Victoria, was glittering in diamonds that I knew were insured to the hilt. She was nervously rearranging the silverware. When I walked in, the conversation didn't stop. It didn't even pause. They looked at me, registered my presence, and then looked away, as if I were a waiter bringing water. "Sit at the end, Morgan," my mother said without looking up. "Away from the entrance. We want the best view for Bianca when she walks in." I pulled out the chair at the far end of the table. It was the spot usually reserved for children or the least important guest. From here, I had a perfect view of the entire performance. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Dad," I said. "You're late," my father grunted, checking his Rolex. "She'll be here any minute." "Did you park that car out of sight?" "Yes, sir." "Good. And fix your tie. It's crooked. You look like you just rolled out of bed." "I've been working, Dad." "Working," he snorted. "Right. The app, how's that going? Make your first $100 yet?" Before I could answer, the heavy oak doors opened. The energy in the room shifted instantly. My parents straightened their spines. My father put on his salesman smile. My mother clasped her hands together in delight. Harrison walked in, looking like he had just stepped out of a GQ catalog. He was wearing a navy bespoke suit that cost more than my car. On his arm was a woman who looked like she could run the world, or burn it down. Bianca. She was stunning, yes, with sharp features and piercing dark eyes. But what caught my attention was her body language. She wasn't clinging to Harrison. She was walking with a stride that matched his. She was holding her phone in her other hand, her thumb scrolling rapidly. She looked tired, stressed, and completely uninterested in the pageantry. "Sorry we're late," Harrison announced, his voice booming. "Bianca was just closing a call with Tokyo. The life of a venture capitalist, right?" Bianca looked up from her phone. Her eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on my parents, then on Stuart, and finally, they rested on me at the far end of the table. She paused. Her brow furrowed slightly. It was a look of calculation, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Everyone, Harrison said, gesturing grandly. This is Bianca. Charmed, my dear. My father boomed, standing up. Welcome to the family. I stayed seated, watching. I saw Bianca slip her phone into her purse, but not before I saw the logo on her screen. It was the Titan Ventures internal dashboard. And right at the top, in red letters, was a pending alert, Apex Horizon meeting request pending. She was looking for me. She was looking for the CEO of Apex Horizon. And she had no idea he was sitting 10 feet away, wearing a cheap suit and being judged for his crooked tie. This was going to be an interesting dinner. The waiter arrived to pour the water, a young man who looked terrified of splashing a single drop on the white tablecloth. I watched him work with a detached, analytical eye. In my warehouses, robots could sort 50,000 packages an hour with a 0.01% error rate. Humans, however, were prone to nervousness. Still drinking tap water, Morgan? Harrison asked, unfolding his napkin with a flourish. I can order you a sparkling if you want. It's on me. Water is fine, I said quietly. Bianca settled into her chair next to Harrison. Up close, the strain around her eyes was more visible. She placed her phone on the table, face up. A breach of etiquette my mother would usually scold anyone for, but for Bianca, she just smiled tightly. So, Bianca started, her voice raspy. Harrison tells me you're in logistics? Before I could answer, my mother laughed. It was a tinkling, artificial sound that grated on my nerves. Oh, Bianca, don't use such big words. Logistics implies management. Morgan is in delivery. He helps move boxes around. Like a courier? Bianca asked, glancing at me. There was no judgment in her eyes, just curiosity. Something like that, I said. I specialize in supply chain optimization. He drives for one of those apps, Harrison cut in, taking a sip of his scotch. You know, the gig economy. It keeps him busy. We keep telling him to get a real certification, maybe in real estate like Dad, but he likes the freedom. I took a sip of water to hide the smirk forming on my lips. Real estate. My father hadn't sold a commercial property in 6 months. The market had moved online, and Oakmont Holdings was still relying on billboards and newspaper ads. Well, honest work is honest work, Bianca said politely, though her eyes drifted back to her phone screen. She sighed. I wish the people I was dealing with were as straightforward as a courier. Trouble at the firm? My father asked, leaning in. He smelled blood in the water. This was his opening. It's this merger, Bianca said, rubbing her temples. We are trying to close a Series B funding round for a company called Apex Horizon. Do you know them? The table went silent. I felt my heart skip a beat, not out of fear, but out of sheer amusement. Apex? Harrison scoffed. Sounds like a gym. It's the largest AI-driven logistics network in the hemisphere, Bianca corrected him sharply. They came out of nowhere 3 years ago and basically swallowed the market. Their proprietary algorithm is saving shipping companies billions. We want in. Titan Ventures wants to lead their next expansion. Sounds profitable, my father said, licking his lips. So what's the problem? The problem, Bianca said, picking up her fork and stabbing a piece of lettuce, is the CEO. No one knows who he is. Or she. The entity is listed as M. Blackwood on the incorporation papers, but there are no photos, no interviews, no LinkedIn profile. We call him the ghost. I've sent 5 proposals this month. All rejected without a meeting. Arrogant, my father declared. Never trust a CEO who won't shake your hand. Probably some kid in a basement running a scam. It's not a scam, Conrad, Bianca said, her voice tightening. Their financials are audited by Deloitte. They are legit. And this ghost is brilliant. The rejection emails I get? They aren't standard form letters. He analyzes our offer and points out exactly where our valuation model is wrong. He knows our business better than we do. I looked down at my plate. I remembered those emails. I had written the last one while eating cereal at 3 a.m. Titan Ventures had undervalued my European assets by 15%. I wasn't going to take a meeting with anyone who hadn't done their homework. Maybe he's just waiting for the right partner, I said softly. Bianca looked at me, surprised that the delivery boy had an opinion. Maybe. But I'm running out of time. If I don't land a meeting by Monday, my partners are going to kill me. I need a win. Well, my father said, spreading his hands wide. You're sitting with the Blackwoods. We know a thing or two about business. Forget this apex nonsense. Let's talk about real assets. Brick and mortar. He signaled the waiter for more wine. The trap was set. The appetizers arrived, escargot and beef tartare. My father ordered a bottle of Cabernet that I knew retailed for $400. He didn't even check the price. It was the behavior of a man spending money he didn't have to impress a woman who managed billions. To family, my father toasted, raising his glass. And to new partnerships. To partnerships, Harrison echoed, clinking his glass against Bianca's. I raised my water glass. No one clinked with me. You know, Bianca, my father began, setting his glass down. Seeing you and Harrison together, it just makes sense. Harrison has always been the visionary of this family. Even as a boy, he was leading. He was captain of the football team, class president. A natural-born leader. I cut into my beef tartare. Harrison had been the captain because Dad donated new bleachers to the school. He was class president because he ran unopposed. Morgan here, my father continued, gesturing at me with a fork, was always the quiet one. A bit slow to launch, weren't you, son? I liked to read, I said. He liked to hide, my mother corrected. She turned to Bianca with a conspiratorial smile. We tried everything. Tutors, sports camps, life coaches. But some people just don't have that drive. That hunger to succeed. We've made our peace with it. We just support him where we can. We offered him a job in the mailroom last year, Harrison added, chewing loudly. $20 an hour. Full benefits. He turned it down. Said he was working on a project. Can you believe that? Turns down a career at a legacy firm to play with computers. Bianca looked at me. What kind of project? It's technical, I said. Automated systems. Boring stuff, Harrison waved his hand. Trust me, babe, if you ask him about it, he'll put you to sleep. He speaks in binary code. It's antisocial. We worry about him, my mother sighed, looking at me with eyes that held zero affection. We just hope he finds a nice girl someday. Someone simpler. You know, maybe a waitress or a teacher who doesn't mind carrying the load. The insult hung in the air. They weren't just calling me poor, they were calling me unlovable. They were stripping away my dignity piece by piece to build a pedestal for Harrison. I felt a vibration in my pocket. It was my real phone. A text from Felix, update, Oakmont's line of credit just got flagged by the Fed. They are officially frozen as of 5 p.m. If your father swipes that card tonight, it might decline. I looked at my father, who was swirling his expensive wine, oblivious to the fact that his financial empire had just flatlined. So, Bianca, my father said, pivoting sharply. Speaking of carrying the load. Harrison tells me Titan Ventures is looking to diversify into real estate holding companies. Is that true? Here it comes. The pitch. Bianca hesitated. She put her fork down. We are looking at distress opportunities, yes. But the market is volatile, Conrad. We're being very selective. Distress opportunities, my father laughed nervously. Well, Oakmont is hardly distressed. We are expanding. But we have a liquidity issue. Growing pains, you understand. We have assets, prime locations, but they are tied up in long-term leases. We need a bridge partner. Someone to inject some liquid capital to unlock the next phase of growth. He reached under the table and pulled out a leather-bound folder. He didn't just have it in his bag, he had it ready on his lap. I took the liberty of drawing up a proposal, my father said, sliding the folder across the white tablecloth toward Bianca. Just a draft, of course. But it outlines a strategic partnership. Titan puts up $5 million as a convertible note. We give you preferred equity. It's a steal for you, really. Bianca looked at the folder like it was a bomb. Conrad, this is a dinner. We're celebrating our engagement. I can't look at deal flow right now. It's not work if it's family. Harrison chirped. Come on, babe. Just take a look. Dad's been working on this all week. Do it for me? He put his hand on hers. It looked affectionate, but I saw the pressure in his fingers. He was squeezing. It wasn't a request, it was a demand. Bianca pulled her hand away gently. I can't promise anything. My investment committee is strict. Especially right now. If I bring them a real estate deal while I'm failing to land the Apex Horizon account, they'll laugh me out of the room. Forget Apex. My father snapped, losing his cool for a second. Why are you chasing ghosts when you have gold sitting right in front of you? Oakmont is real. We are here. We are family. And what does Morgan think? Bianca asked suddenly. Everyone froze. Me? I asked. Yes, Bianca said, turning her chair slightly to face me. You're in logistics. You see the movement of goods and markets on the ground level. Is real estate booming in the sectors you drive through? Are the warehouses full? My father's eyes bulged. He stared at me with a mixture of panic and a threat. Don't you dare, his eyes said. Keep your mouth shut. Actually, I said, leaning back in my chair. The warehouses are full, but not with retail goods. They're full of excess inventory that isn't moving. The consumer index is down. Commercial real estate in this district is overleveraged. If I were investing, I'd say Oakmont's portfolio looks heavy. Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. My mother gasped. Harrison looked ready to jump across the table and strangle me. He doesn't know what he's talking about, Harrison spat out, his face turning red. He delivers pizzas, Bianca. He doesn't know what leveraged means. He probably heard that word on CNBC. I apologize for him, my father said through gritted teeth. Morgan likes to sound smart to compensate for his situation. Please, ignore him. I see, Bianca said. She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes narrowing. She wasn't buying their story anymore. She was starting to see the cracks. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I need to use the restroom. I needed to step away. Not to hide, but to execute. I walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out my encrypted phone. I opened the Apex Horizon CEO admin panel. I found the pending meeting request from Titan Ventures. It had been sitting in the queue for 3 days. I hit approve. Then I composed a new email to Bianca directly. Subject, regarding Oakmont Holdings insolvency. Body, I'm sitting at the end of the table. The wine is corked. And Oakmont is bankrupt. Don't sign the papers. I hit send. I washed my hands, straightened my cheap tie, and looked in the mirror. Game over, I whispered. When I returned to the table, the main course had arrived. Filet mignon for everyone, except me. I had ordered the chicken, which seemed to please my father. It fit the budget he had set for me in his mind. The atmosphere was thick enough to cut with a knife. My father had pushed the leather folder closer to Bianca's plate. It was now resting dangerously close to her wine glass. Just read the executive summary, Bianca, my father was saying, his voice bordering on begging. That's all I ask. We need a letter of intent by Monday morning to clear some administrative hurdles. Administrative hurdles. That was code for the bank is seizing our accounts. Bianca was cutting her steak methodically. Conrad, I love Harrison. And I respect you. But Titan Ventures isn't my personal checkbook. I have a fiduciary duty to my partners. If I bring them a deal, it has to be vetted. I need to see your last 3 years of tax returns, your debt schedule, and your lease agreements. We can get you those later. Harrison interjected. But we need the commitment now. Trust, Bianca. Isn't that what marriage is about? Marriage is about trust, Bianca said without looking up. Business is about verification. You're being difficult, my mother snapped. She had lost her facade of the sweet matriarch. We are welcoming you into this family. We are giving you our son. The least you can do is help us when we have a cash flow timing issue. A timing issue? Bianca raised an eyebrow. Is that what it is? Or is it something else? It's just a bridge loan. My father slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware rattle. A few heads at nearby tables turned. God, why does everything have to be an interrogation? We are offering you a golden ticket. Dad, calm down, Harrison said, though he looked equally sweaty. He turned to me, his eyes full of venom. He needed a target. He needed to deflect the tension. This is your fault, Morgan. I looked up from my chicken. My fault? Yes. Your bad energy. You sitting there like a lump, judging us. You put Bianca in a bad mood with your stupid comments about the market. Why are you even here? You contribute nothing to this family. Nothing. Harrison, Bianca warned. Stop. No, I won't stop. Harrison stood up, throwing his napkin on the table. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of carrying him. I'm sick of pretending he's not a loser. Look at him. He's 29 and he's wearing a suit from a thrift store. He drives a Honda with a dented bumper. He's a leech, Bianca. A parasite. I slowly placed my fork down. The restaurant was quiet now. The rich patrons at the other tables were watching the meltdown of the Blackwood family with rapt attention. Are you finished, Harrison? I asked calmly. No, I'm not finished. Harrison shouted, his face purple. I want you to leave. Get out. Go wait in the car until we're done. I don't want to look at you while I'm trying to save this family's future. Save the future? I repeated. Is that what you call begging your fiancé for $5 million to pay off a loan you took out to buy a yacht you couldn't afford? The color drained from my father's face. How do you know about that? I know a lot of things, I said. I know Oakmont hasn't paid payroll tax in 6 months. I know you mortgaged the lake house twice. And I know that this partnership isn't an investment. It's a donation to a sinking ship. You shut your mouth. My mother hissed. You ungrateful little. Harrison is right, I said, standing up. I don't belong at this table. But before I go, I looked directly at Bianca. Check your email, Bianca. Bianca blinked, confused. The anger in the room was palpable, swirling around us like a storm, but she was the eye of it. What? Your work email, I said. You've been waiting for a notification all week. It just arrived. Don't look at it. Harrison yelled, grabbing for her phone. He's probably sending you some virus. Or asking for money. Bianca slapped Harrison's hand away. It was a sharp, loud sound. She grabbed her phone from the table. It's a priority alert, she whispered, her eyes widening. From Apex Horizon. My father froze. What? Bianca unlocked her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She read the subject line. Her breath hitched. Regarding Oakmont Holdings insolvency, she read aloud. Her voice trembled. She tapped the email open. She read the first line. Then the second. She slowly raised her head and looked at me. Her eyes traveled from my frayed cuffs to my face, seeing me for the first time. Really seeing me. The wine is corked, she whispered, reading the text I had sent. She looked at the bottle of Cabernet on the table. Then she looked back at me. And I'm sitting at the end of the table. The phone slipped from Bianca's fingers. It didn't hit the table. It hit her wine glass. The glass tipped over in slow motion. The dark red liquid spilled across the pristine white tablecloth, spreading like a bloodstain toward my father's proposal folder. The crystal shattered against the china plate with a sound that seemed to echo like a gunshot. No one moved. The waiter took a step forward but stopped when he saw the look on Bianca's face. "Bianca?" Harrison asked, his voice shaking. "Honey? What is it? What did he send you?" Bianca ignored him. She stood up, her legs unsteady. She was staring at me as if I were a ghost. "You," she stammered. "You are M. Blackwood?" "Morgan Blackwood," I corrected gently. "Founder and CEO of Apex Horizon." "That's impossible." My father laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "Bianca, he's hacking you. He's playing a prank. Morgan can barely work a microwave, let alone run a company." "Shut up, Conrad," Bianca said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it had the authority of a judge passing a death sentence. She picked up her phone with a trembling hand and tapped the screen, turning it around so my family could see. "This is the internal employee portal for Apex Horizon," she said, pointing to the screen. "It requires biometric authentication to access. Look at the profile." My father leaned in, squinting. My mother put on her glasses. Harrison stared, his mouth hanging open. There, on the screen, was my corporate headshot. I was wearing a Tom Ford suit, looking sharp, commanding, and powerful. Underneath my name, it read, Morgan Blackwood, Chief Executive Officer. And below that, the metric that mattered most to people like my parents. Estimated equity value, $4.2 billion. "Billion?" Harrison whispered. The word sounded foreign in his mouth. "With a B?" "He's the ghost," Bianca said, her voice filled with awe and horror. "He's the one I've been chasing for 8 months. The one who rejected our term sheets because our math was wrong." She turned to me, her eyes filling with tears. "You rejected the Titan deal because we undervalued the European assets. You wrote that email." "You were off by 15%, I said, shrugging. "I don't do bad deals. And I don't let my partners invest in bad deals either." I nodded toward my father. "That folder is a bad deal, Bianca. Oakmont is dead. If you sign that, you lose your career." My father slumped back in his chair. He looked like he had been punched in the gut. All the blood had drained from his face, leaving him looking gray and old. "Morgan," he croaked. You have $4 billion? "Yes," I said. "And you let us." My mother put a hand to her mouth. "You let us pay for your dinner? You let Harrison buy you a suit?" "I didn't ask for any of that," I said. "You insisted on the narrative. You needed me to be the failure so you could feel successful. I just played the part." "But, why?" Harrison stammered. "Why didn't you tell us? Would it have mattered?" I asked. "If I told you, you would have just asked for money. You wouldn't have been proud of me. You would have been proud of my wallet." I looked around the table. The spilled wine was dripping onto the floor. The partnership proposal was soaked in red. The illusion of the Blackwood family was shattered. "I think I'll skip dessert," I said. I stood up, smoothing the front of my jacket. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the soft, rhythmic dripping of the spilled wine hitting the carpet. It sounded like a ticking clock, counting down the final seconds of Oakmont Holdings. "Sit down, Morgan," my father commanded. But his voice lacked its usual thunder. It was thin, reedy, vibrating with a panic he couldn't suppress. We need to discuss this. There must be a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding, Conrad," Bianca said. She was still standing, her eyes glued to the financial summary on her phone screen. She scrolled down, reading the data that verified my identity and my assets. The biometric key matches. The IP address matches. He is the majority shareholder. He owns 51% of the logistics infrastructure in the Midwest. She looked up at me, and for the first time I saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of me, but fear of what I represented. I was the titan she had been trying to court, and she had just spent an hour watching her fiancé humiliate me. "You knew," Bianca whispered to me. "You sat there and let me lecture you about honest work while you were controlling the market I work in." "I wanted to see who you were," I said simply. "And I wanted to see who they were." "Who we are?" Harrison laughed, but it was a jagged, broken sound. He stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We are your family, Morgan. We made you. You think because you got lucky with some computer code that you're better than us? You're still just the weird little brother who couldn't throw a football. And you're still the golden child who can't pay his own bills," I replied. Just then, the waiter returned. He looked nervous, sensing the tension in the room. He held a small black leather folder. "The bill." I can take that," my father said quickly, snatching the folder from the waiter's hand. "Everything is fine here. Just a little spill. Put it on the black card." He slapped his credit card onto the tray. The waiter nodded and retreated to the terminal in the corner of the room. We waited. The air was thick, suffocating. My mother was gripping her napkin so hard her knuckles were white. She looked at me, her eyes darting back and forth, trying to calculate a new strategy. I could see the gears turning. She was wondering if it was too late to play the doting mother card. The waiter returned. He didn't look happy. "I'm sorry, sir," he said softly, leaning down to my father's ear, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "The card was declined." My father flinched as if he'd been slapped. "That's ridiculous. Run it again. It's an unlimited limit." "We ran it 3 times, sir. The bank has put a freeze on the account. Code 42. Asset seizure pending." My father froze. The color drained from his face completely. He knew what that meant. The line of credit hadn't just expired, the bank had accelerated the debt. They were locking him out. "Do you have another card?" the waiter asked politely. My father patted his pockets, his hands trembling. He looked at Harrison. "Son? Can you?" Harrison looked away. I maxed mine out on the ring deposit, Dad. You know that." The bill sat there. $4,200. Unpaid. Slowly, agonizingly, 3 pairs of eyes turned toward me. My father, my mother, and my brother. They looked at the billionaire at the end of the table. "Morgan," my father said, his voice cracking. A forced, painful smile stretched across his face. "Son. It seems there's a technical glitch with the bank. You know how these things are. Could you handle this? We'll square up later." "Yeah, bro," Harrison chimed in, trying to regain his swagger but failing miserably. "Just grab this one. You can afford it now, right? Mr. Moneybags?" I looked at the bill. Then I looked at them. "I can't," I said. "What do you mean you can't?" my mother hissed. "You have billions." "I have to save my pennies for rent," I quoted my father's words from an hour ago. "Remember? I'm just a courier. I need to be responsible." Morgan, stop playing games. My father shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Pay the damn bill. We are your family. No, I said coldly. You are people who invited me here to mock me. You are people who were going to trick this woman into a fraudulent investment. I'm not paying for your arrogance. Not anymore. Bianca was watching the exchange with a look of pure horror. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and she was finally seeing the Blackwoods without the filter of their lies. Wait, Bianca said, her voice cutting through the noise. She turned to Harrison. You told me you were paying his rent. Harrison froze. Babe, it was just a figure of speech. You said you were supporting him, Bianca pressed, stepping closer to him. You said he was a financial burden on the family. You used that story to explain why your liquidity was low last month. You told me you couldn't put down the full down payment on the condo because you sent $5,000 to Morgan. I was protecting his reputation. Harrison stammered. I didn't want you to think he was a loser. He's a billionaire, Harrison. Bianca screamed. He didn't need your $5,000. Where did that money go? Harrison looked trapped. He glanced at his father, then at the floor. Gambling, I supplied the answer. Harrison has a standing debt at the Rivers Casino. He lost $40,000 last month on blackjack. I assume that's where your down payment went. Bianca gasped. She looked at Harrison, disgust written all over her face. You lied to me. You lied about your brother. You lied about your finances. You lied about everything. It's just money, Bianca. Harrison pleaded, reaching for her arm. We can fix this. Morgan will help us. We're a team now, right? With his capital and my connections. Don't touch me, Bianca spat, recoiling from him. She reached down to her left hand. With a yank, she pulled off the diamond engagement ring, a ring I now suspected was bought on credit. She threw it onto the table. It bounced and landed in the pool of spilled wine. I am not marrying into a fraud, Bianca said, her voice shaking with rage. I am not marrying a man who needs to stand on his brother's neck to feel tall. Bianca, please. My mother wailed, standing up and knocking over her chair. Don't be rash. We are just having a bad night. We love you. You don't love me, Victoria, Bianca said coldly. You love my firm's checkbook. I see that now. She turned to me. Her expression softened, shifting from anger to a professional, respectful mask. Mr. Blackwood, she said. I apologize. I deeply apologize for the disrespect I showed you tonight. I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said. But you were the only one who treated me like a human being before you knew my net worth. I respect that. I will have my resignation from the Oakmont deal on your desk by Monday, she said. Titan Ventures will not be doing business with this family. She grabbed her purse and walked out. She didn't look back at Harrison, who was slumped in his chair, head in his hands. I watched her go. Then I looked at my family one last time. Morgan, my father whispered. He looked small. Defeated. The bluster was gone. Please. The bill. They'll call the police. You have a Rolex, I said, pointing to his wrist. It's worth $10,000, isn't it? You love to brag about it. Give it to the manager. It should cover the wine. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a $20 bill. I dropped it on the table. That's for the chicken, I said. It was dry. I turned and walked away. Morgan. Come back here. My mother screamed after me. You can't do this to us. We raised you. I kept walking. Past the velvet rope. Past the stunned diners. Past Uncle Stuart, who was standing by the bar with his mouth open, phone still recording. I walked out into the cold Chicago night. The wind hit my face, biting and sharp, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel cold. It felt clean. Monday morning came with the brutality of a sledgehammer. I was in my office at Apex Horizon by 6 a.m. The city below was waking up, but the storm for the Blackwood family had already made landfall. My personal phone, the encrypted one, had been silent. But the burner phone I used for family? When I checked it, there were 47 missed calls. Voicemails from my father ranging from rage, "You ungrateful bastard," to bargaining, "We can work out a payment plan," to absolute despair, "They're taking the house, Morgan. Please." I didn't listen to them all. I forwarded them to my legal team. At 9 a.m., the news broke. Oakmont Holdings files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The article in the Chicago Tribune was brief but brutal. It mentioned gross mismanagement of assets and failed liquidity events. It didn't mention me. I had made sure of that. My name was kept out of the press. Felix walked in with a tablet. "Boss, we have a situation in the lobby." "Let me guess," I said, not looking up from my screens. "My brother? He's demanding to see you. He's screaming something about familial rights and suing for emotional distress. Security is holding him back, but he's making a scene." I sighed. "Call the police, Felix. Issue a criminal trespass warning. If he comes back, have him arrested." Felix paused. "Are you sure, sir? He is your brother." I looked at Felix. "My brother died a long time ago, Felix. That man downstairs is just a stranger who shares my last name." "Understood." An hour later, I received a notification from my bank. My mother had tried to use her secondary credit card, the one linked to an old joint account we had when I was in college, to book a flight to the Bahamas. She was trying to run. I had closed that account 5 years ago. Transaction declined. I felt a strange hollowness in my chest. It wasn't guilt. It was the absence of a burden I hadn't realized I was carrying. For years, I had held on to the hope that one day they would see me. That one day, if I just achieved enough, if I became powerful enough, they would look at me with the same pride they looked at Harrison. But on Saturday night, I realized the truth. They were incapable of seeing me. They were vampires, feeding on status and appearance. And when the mirror cracked, they didn't reflect on themselves. They just looked for someone else to blame. I was done being the mirror. At 2 in the afternoon, my intercom buzzed. "Ms. Bianca Rossi is here to see you, sir," the receptionist said. "She has an appointment." "Send her in." The doors opened, and Bianca walked in. She looked different than she had at the dinner. She was wearing a sharp gray business suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. No engagement ring. Her eyes were clear, focused. She carried a briefcase, not a purse. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, extending her hand. "Ms. Rossi," I said, standing up to shake it. Her grip was firm. "Please, call me Morgan. We aren't at Le Jardin anymore." She sat down opposite my desk. She didn't waste time with small talk. She opened her briefcase and slid a thick document across the mahogany surface. "This is the formal retraction of Titan Ventures' interest in Oakmont Holdings," she said. "And here is the new term sheet for Apex Horizon. I revised the valuation model based on your email feedback. We adjusted the European asset multiplier. We are now valuing Apex at $4.5 billion. I looked at the papers. The math was perfect. "You work fast," I said. "I have to," she replied. "I have a reputation to rebuild. Nearly marrying a fraud doesn't look good on a resume." How is he?" I asked. It was a moment of weakness. Bianca's expression didn't flicker. "Harrison? He called me 20 times yesterday. He sent flowers to my office. Charged them to my company card, which he apparently memorized. I filed a fraud report this morning." She looked at me, her eyes softening slightly. He's a child, Morgan. A 32-year-old child. You were the only adult at that table. They are losing everything, I said, looking out the window. The bank took the lake house this morning. The cars are next. They lost everything a long time ago, Bianca said. They just didn't know it yet. You didn't ruin them, Morgan. You just turned on the lights. She was right. I hadn't fired the gun. I had just refused to stand in front of the bullet anymore. So, I said, tapping the contract. Titan Ventures wants to lead our Series B. Why should I say yes? There are 3 other firms knocking on my door. Bianca leaned forward. Because I know the truth now. I know what you built in the dark while everyone told you were nothing. I know that chip on your shoulder is what drives this engine. Other investors see a balance sheet. I see the man who outworked his own legacy. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had felt in days. Welcome to the team, Bianca. 6 months later. I was sitting in the lounge of O'Hare International Airport, waiting to board my private jet to Tokyo. The Apex Horizon expansion into Asia was complete. We were now the dominant logistics player in the Pacific Rim. I picked up a copy of the local business journal. On page 6, buried in the back, was a small blurb. Former real estate mogul Conrad Blackwood files for personal bankruptcy. Assets liquidated. There was a photo. It was a grainy shot of my father and Harrison leaving a courthouse. They looked disheveled. Angry. They were arguing with each other. My mother was nowhere to be seen. Rumor had it she had moved in with her sister in Florida. I put the paper down. I had received a letter from my father a week ago. It was handwritten. No apology. Just a request for a small loan to help them get back on their feet. He appealed to my sense of duty. He signed it, your father. I didn't burn the letter. I didn't frame it. I just put it in the shredder. I stood up and walked toward the gate. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Bianca. Meeting set with the Minister of Trade in Tokyo. Also, I found a great ramen place for dinner. My treat. I typed back, only if I can wear a hoodie. She replied, wear whatever you want, boss. I boarded the plane. As the wheels lifted off the tarmac, leaving the frozen streets of Chicago behind, I looked down one last time. Somewhere down there, in a rented apartment, my family was probably telling anyone who would listen about how their ungrateful son abandoned them. They were probably still the heroes of their own story. But up here? At 30,000 feet? The silence was beautiful. Looking back, I watched my own family's legacy burn to the ground when I held the fire extinguisher in my hand. But after a lifetime of being treated like trash, I chose not to pull the pin. Am I the asshole for letting my family go bankrupt when I could have easily saved them with a check? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed seeing karma served cold, please smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. Do you think Morgan went too far, or did the family get exactly what they deserved? Let us know in the comments below. See you in the next story.